The problem with alien ruins is they never come with a user manual. Dr. Vesper Kyrell stood amidst the dusty remnants of an ancient civilization, a place that looked like it had been forgotten even by the universe's most persistent dust mites. Well, she huffed, wiping grime from her forehead, ain't this a bloody postcard? Around her, remnants of what might have once been a glorious structure stretched out in jagged lines like a drunk's attempt at architecture. She could almost hear the echoes of laughter from whatever ancient beings once inhabited these spaces, probably mocking her for getting her boots dirty. Dr. Kyrell, chirped a voice from behind her, annoyingly chipper for such a dreary locale. It was Harris, an overly enthusiastic research assistant with the optimism of a puppy and the naivete of a toddler. I think I've found something. Kyrell turned, offering a smile that didn't quite meet her eyes. Is it hope for humanity? Because we're fresh out. She followed Harris, who was practically skipping over the rubble. The find was a piece of metal, covered in alien gibberish and glowing faintly. It could have been important, or it could have just been some alien's version of a live, laugh, love sign. But Kyrell knew better than to get too excited. This looks promising, Harris grinned, his face aglow with youthful exuberance. Yeah, like last week's promising rock that turned out to be a space toilet. Kyrell sighed, taking the artifact from Harris's hands, her mind already buzzing with the possibilities, most of them grim. The rest of the team, a ragtag bunch of misfits and nerds, gathered around. There was Singh, the linguist who could barely speak sarcasm, and Jax, the techie whose hacking skills were only matched by his ability to drink his weight in synthale. If this thing's worth anything, Jax muttered, examining the artifact over Kyrell's shoulder, the Empire's gonna want a piece. Hell, they want a piece of everything. The mention of the Zygoth Empire was enough to dampen any lingering enthusiasm. The Empire was like that one ex who couldn't let go. Always watching, always judging, always a pain in the ass. Kyrell shrugged. Let them come, maybe they'll bring sandwiches. Harris, bless his heart, looked worried. The Zygoth don't seem like the sharing type. They're more the take what you want and leave nothing behind type, Singh added, which was probably the most insightful thing he'd said all week. Just as Kyrell was about to make another snarky comment, the ground beneath them shuddered, a tremor that sent a chorus of rattling through the ruins. It was the sort of welcome you only get in the worst neighborhoods of space. Ah, great, Kyrell muttered, they've sent the welcome wagon. A sleek and ominously familiar ship descended from the clouds, the Empire's insignia emblazoned on its hull. It was the kind of symbol that screamed, compensation issues. Brace yourselves for diplomacy, Jax quipped, pulling his jacket tighter as if it would somehow make him less of a target. The ship landed with all the grace of a sledgehammer, and out marched a contingent of Zygoth soldiers. Their leader, a particularly sour-faced officer, strutted over with the arrogance of someone who's spent their life being told they're important. Greetings, the officer began, voice dripping with condescension. I am Commander Vroth. You are trespassing on Zygoth territory. And you're trespassing on my patience, Kyrell replied, folding her arms. We're just humble archaeologists, trying to uncover the mysteries of the universe and all that. She gestured broadly to the ruins, where the mysteries mostly consisted of rubble and disappointment. Vroth's eyes narrowed. This site is now under the jurisdiction of the Empire. You will cease your activities immediately. Funny, Kyrell said. I thought you guys were more into blowing things up than archaeology. Harris, standing awkwardly to the side, whispered, maybe we should just cooperate. Kyrell shot him a look that could melt steel. Where's the fun in that? Vroth leaned closer, his breath smelling like something that died twice. We have no time for your primitive games. Surrender the artifact. Kyrell looked at the artifact, then at Vroth. Oh, it's just a cosmic paperweight. Want it? I hope you've got a good interior decorator. Jax snorted, earning a glare from Vroth. You find this amusing, human? It's the little things, Jax replied, grinning as if he hadn't a care in the world. Vroth's patience was wearing thin, which wasn't saying much since it started thin anyway. You have until sunrise to vacate the premises. After that, we will resort to alternative measures. Alternative measures, Singh repeated, mimicking Vroth's pompous tone. Sounds kinky. Vroth didn't rise to the bait. He simply turned on his heel, marching back to his ship with his entourage of equally humorless soldiers. As the ship took off, its engines kicking up a storm of dust, Kyrell sighed. Well, that went better than expected. Yeah, Jax said, we're only slightly screwed. Harris shuffled nervously. What do we do now? Kyrell looked at the artifact in her hands, then at her motley crew. We do what humans do best. We improvise. The night was as dark as the inside of a Zygoth prison, and twice as foreboding. The team gathered in what used to be a chamber of some significance, though now it was mainly significant for its draftiness. Okay, Kyrell said, holding up the artifact. We need to find out what this thing does before those intergalactic party poopers come back. Sing, ever the voice of practicality, asked, and how do you propose we do that? Jax was already fiddling with his datapad. I've got some decryption software that might work. Or it might fry our circuits. Either way, it'll be entertaining. As long as it ends with something exploding, I'm game, Kyrell said, watching as Jax connected wires and muttered to himself. The artifact hummed, a sound that echoed off the walls with an eerie resonance. Harris, who had the misfortune of standing closest to Jax, swallowed hard. Is it supposed to do that? I sure hope so, Jax replied, his fingers dancing over the datapad. Otherwise, we're about to become a cautionary tale. The humming grew louder, and the artifact began to glow, casting strange shadows across the walls. It was the sort of scene that would end in a dramatic explosion in the movies, but in real life, it was mostly just unsettling. If this thing kills us, Jax said, his voice straining over the noise, I just want you all to know, I still owe Kyrell 50 credits. Duly noted, Kyrell replied, eyes locked on the artifact. Suddenly, the glow faded, and the artifact fell silent, as if it was as tired of the drama as the rest of them. The team let out a collective sigh of relief. Well, Sing said, that was anticlimactic. Kyrell raised an eyebrow. Anticlimactic is when you kiss someone and they burp. This is a ticking time bomb. As if on cue, the artifact whirred back to life, projecting a hologram into the center of the room. It was a map, or at least it looked like one, filled with alien symbols and patterns that danced across the air. Oh, great, Harris murmured, now we've got ourselves a treasure map. Jax squinted at the hologram. Or a guide to the universe's worst buffet. Kyrell didn't laugh. This could be what the Empire's after. What are we going to do? Harris asked, his voice a mix of excitement and dread. Kyrell thought for a moment, then grinned. We're going to solve this puzzle before sunrise, and when Vroth comes back, we'll give him the best damn sleight of hand he's ever seen. Jax nodded, cracking his knuckles. I love a good underdog story. The team got to work, deciphering the symbols and patterns, piecing together a mystery that had been buried for millennia. It was a race against time, against an empire, and against their own lingering doubts. As the night wore on, the air heavy with anticipation and the scent of stale coffee, they began to see the bigger picture, a pathway to something greater, something hidden, something powerful. This is it, Kyrell whispered, pointing to a glowing symbol that pulsed like a heartbeat. We've found what they're looking for. Just as she spoke, the first rays of dawn crept across the ruins, casting long shadows that seemed to mock their efforts. In the distance, the low rumble of the Empire's ship returning echoed across the barren landscape. Jax looked up from his work. Time's up, Kyrell nodded, determination in her eyes. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The team gathered their equipment, ready to face whatever the Empire threw at them. They were just humans, mismatched and outnumbered, but armed with something far more dangerous, a reason to fight. As they watched the Zygoth ship descend, Kyrell couldn't help but smile, a grim, defiant smile that said more than words ever could. The ruins had all the charm of a backyard barbecue gone horribly wrong. Dust, rubble, and the creeping feeling that you were probably standing on something significant. Or at least something that used to be significant before Zygoth bulldozers made it their personal sandbox. But hey, what's a little cultural desecration between friends? Dr. Vesper Kyrell stood at the head of her ragtag team with all the confidence of someone who had no idea what they were doing but was damn good at faking it. Beside her, Harris fidgeted like he was trying to audition for the role of nervous intern in some galactic sitcom. Sing was squinting at the holographic map, probably wishing it would suddenly start making sense. Meanwhile, Jax was leaning against a rock, pretending that nothing ruffled him, except maybe the lack of decent synthale in the region. They watched as the Zygoth ship touched down again. Its landing gear dug into the soil, spewing more debris into the air, because apparently, subtlety was for losers. Commander Vroth's back, and he's about as welcome as a skunk at a garden party, Kyrell murmured. The team braced themselves for round 2 of what could only be described as the galaxy's least entertaining episode of Diplomacy, or Else. As Vroth strutted over, his expression was about as warm and welcoming as a block of ice. Have you vacated the premises? We were just discussing our vacation plans, Kyrell shot back. Thinking of somewhere with less empire. Enough. Vroth waved a hand, dismissing sarcasm like it was an inconvenient fly. This site is under Zygoth control. You have no authority here. Authority? Oh, we left that in our other pants, Jax quipped, earning a smirk from Kyrell. Harris cleared his throat, stepping forward like he was about to deliver a eulogy. Commander, we understand the importance of this site. But the artifact, it requires study. There could be historical implications, cultural value. Your implication is that we should care, Vroth interrupted, eyes narrowing. And yet I find myself utterly unmoved. Kyrell stepped closer, deliberately invading Vroth's personal space. Look, pal, we're not asking for much. Just a little time to figure out what this doodad does. Then you can have your empire-sized tantrum. Vroth's eye twitched, always a good sign someone was reaching the limits of their patience. You have until midday. After that, I authorize my team to remove you forcibly. Oh, goody, Singh muttered under his breath. I've always wanted to be removed forcibly from a historic site. With that, Vroth turned on his heel, his entourage of stoic soldiers following like a chorus of surly backup dancers. The team watched them go, a collective sigh escaping once they were out of earshot. Jax shook his head. What is it with these guys and their love for melodrama? Kyrell shrugged, probably compensating for something, like a shortage of personality. Well, Singh said, glancing at the hologram still flickering in the center of their makeshift workspace, we've got a few hours to make history. Or die trying. Harris's optimism was like a stubborn weed. We can do this. It's just a matter of deciphering alien gibberish before the clock runs out. Great, Kyrell replied with a sarcastic grin. I love a good challenge. Especially one with stakes like imminent death. Jax got to work, his fingers flying over his datapad as he attempted to decode the alien language. Singh, any chance you've magically learned this language overnight? Singh peered at the symbols, scratching his head. Nope, but I did have a dream where I could fly, so maybe I can just wing it. Kyrell rolled her eyes. Fantastic, we're saved. Their banter was interrupted by the sound of clanking metal. A new group had arrived. A delegation from the Galactic Archaeological Council, or GAC as it was affectionately known by those who despised them. They couldn't have picked a worse day to show up. Leading the charge was a woman with a clipboard, the universal symbol of bureaucratic intent. Good morning, I'm Dr. Lena Bryce from the GAC. We're here to assess the site for cultural significance. Kyrell crossed her arms, eyeing the clipboard like it was the enemy. Oh, splendid, a council, just what we needed, more cooks in the kitchen. Bryce smiled with all the warmth of a malfunctioning space heater. We've received reports about this site, and it's imperative that a thorough evaluation is conducted. Vroth, who had lingered nearby like a bad smell, interjected. This is Zygoth territory. Any evaluation will be conducted by the Empire. Bryce's smile didn't falter. I'm afraid the GAC has jurisdiction over all sites of potential archaeological value. Oh, I love a good jurisdictional dispute, Jax commented. Makes my day. Kyrell shot him a look. You would. Bryce ignored them, addressing the team with an air of authority that could probably make a rock feel inadequate. We understand you've discovered something significant. We'd like to examine it. Singh gestured to the hologram. Be our guest. It's not like we're on a deadline or anything. Bryce examined the hologram, her expression shifting from feigned interest to genuine curiosity. This is remarkable. It could rewrite what we know about this civilization. Or it could just be their shopping list, Kyrell added, ever the realist. But we won't know until we crack the code. Vroth's patience, never exactly abundant, was wearing thin. This is a distraction. You have until midday, Dr. Kyrell. Failure to comply will result in consequences. Yeah, consequences. Kyrell waved him off. We'll have this puzzle figured out by the time you've polished your boots. As Vroth stormed off, Bryce turned to Kyrell, clipboard at the ready. If you believe you can solve this, the GAC would be interested in collaborating. Kyrell eyed her warily. Collaborate, or take over? Collaborate, of course, Bryce replied, her smile now as genuine as a 3-credit note. Harris, ever the diplomat, tried to ease the tension. We can all work together, right? For the sake of knowledge and all. Knowledge is great, Jax said, never missing an opportunity for sarcasm. But right now, I'd settle for not getting shot at. The team returned to their work, with Bryce lurking nearby, making notes and asking questions that were as helpful as a solar-powered torch on a rainy day. They had mere hours to solve a mystery older than their collective hangovers, and the clock was ticking louder than an angry Zygoth commander. As the sun climbed higher, the ruins became a hive of frantic activity. Kyrell and her team were racing against time, Vroth's deadline looming over them like a particularly unpleasant cloud. The tension was palpable, the kind of atmosphere that could only be cut with a suitably sarcastic remark. Okay, Kyrell said, surveying their progress. We know this map leads somewhere important. We just need to figure out where. And hope it's not leading us to the universe's largest gravel pit, Singh added helpfully. Jax was engrossed in his datapad, muttering to himself as he tried to unlock the secrets of the ancient language. Come on, you piece of junk. Give me something. Sweet-talking your tech again? Kyrell asked, raising an eyebrow. Only way it listens, Jax replied with a grin. Ah, here we go. I think I've got a partial translation. Harris leaned over, eager to see. What does it say? Well, it's not quite live, laugh, love, but it might be close, Jax said. It's a location. Coordinates. Coordinates, Kyrell echoed, her interest piqued. To what? To the second site, Jax confirmed. Whatever was here, the real treasure might be there. Bryce, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. This could be revolutionary. We must report this to the GAC. Whoa there, clipboard warrior, Kyrell interrupted. If we tell anyone, the Empire will swoop in and claim it before we get a chance to sneeze. But the importance, Bryce began, only to be cut off. Is outweighed by the fact that we'll be vaporized if we don't play this right, Kyrell said firmly. We need a plan. The team huddled together, the hologram casting eerie shadows over their faces. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and possibly out of their minds. But they had something the Empire didn't. A reason to see this through. Okay, Kyrell said, taking charge. Here's what we're gonna do. We'll pretend we're complying. Once they're off our backs, we make a run for these coordinates. Split up if we have to. Sounds risky, Singh noted, though there was a gleam of excitement in his eyes. Risky is our specialty, Jax replied with a smirk. And I'm not going back empty-handed. They could feel the clock ticking down, each second bringing them closer to confrontation. But they hadn't come this far to give up now. Not when they were on the verge of something monumental. As the sun reached its zenith, casting long shadows over the ruins, the Empire's forces began to stir. Vroth's patience had worn out, which was understandable considering it had never been particularly robust to begin with. Kyrell took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. Let's show these Empire-loving jackasses what a real treasure hunt looks like. As the team readied themselves, the ruins seemed to come alive with a sense of imminent action, the old stones echoing the energy of their determination. The Empire was closing in, but they were ready, or as ready as they could be. It was time to take a gamble, one that could either spell triumph or disaster. But hey, that was just another day in the life of an archaeologist on the fringes of space. Here goes nothing, Kyrell whispered, leading her team into the unknown, their fate dancing precariously on the edge of possibility. Dr. Vesper Kyrell leaned against the ancient stone wall, feeling its grit under her fingers. You ever wonder what these guys were like? She asked, more to herself than anyone else. Probably a bunch of bureaucrats, sitting around, writing laws no one understood. Jax, crouched over his datapad like a priest over holy scripture, snorted. Sounds like every civilization ever. Why break tradition? Right. Tradition, Singh chimed in, gesturing at the holographic map that floated above their makeshift camp. This map isn't just directions. It's got layers, a whole legal system embedded in the coordinates. Of course it does, Kyrell replied, rolling her eyes. Because the universe loves complicating things. Can't have treasure without a legal nightmare attached. Harris, ever the optimist, squinted at the map. Maybe it's not so bad. Could be just ceremonial laws. You know, stuff like, don't wear white after the second moon phase. Or, don't piss off the Zygoth, which is a rule we're currently breaking, Jax pointed out, flicking through alien symbols. This is a mess. I feel like I'm trying to read a dictionary written by a drunk octopus. Kyrell chuckled. Well, let's hope the octopus had some sense of order. What do you see, Singh? Singh tapped the map, enlarging sections, revealing more intricate patterns of lines and symbols. It's like a constitution. Rules for governance, trade, even marriage. These aliens were thorough. Thorough is one word for it, Jax said, running a hand through his hair. Another is anal retentive. I mean, who encodes their laws in a map? Just get a damn tablet. You know, Harris said, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and disbelief. This could mean this place was a seat of power. The nexus of an empire. Or, Kyrell interjected, it was the city hall of a very, very boring civilization. Either way, it doesn't help us unless we figure out what these laws mean. As they worked, Commander Vroth's shadow fell over them, a reminder that time was not on their side. Vroth's impatience was as palpable as the dust in the air, and his presence felt like a timer set to explode. So, what have you found? Vroth's voice was less a question and more a demand, laced with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. A bunch of legal jargon, Kyrell replied, not bothering to look up. Think interstellar tax codes, but more obtuse. Interesting, Vroth replied, his tone suggesting it was anything but. Your time's running out. I'd hate to see any accidents. Jax muttered under his breath, accidents, sure. Like getting a Zygoth boot up your Jax, Kyrell warned, waving him off. We're working, Commander. We'll have something for you soon. Vroth nodded, his expression unchanging. Make sure it's worth my time, Dr. Kyrell. Otherwise, this little dig will become a lot less comfortable. As Vroth stalked away, Singh shook his head. Polite as ever. I don't know how you handle him, Dr. Kyrell. Easy, Kyrell said with a smirk. I picture him in a clown suit. Takes the edge off. Why not picture him naked? Harris suggested. Because some things you can't unsee, Harris. Even in your mind's eye. Jax was still hunched over his pad, eyes scanning the symbols. I think I've got something. It's a directive. Seems like it leads to some kind of chamber. Maybe a vault. A vault? Singh asked, curiosity piqued. Yeah, might be where they kept their more tangible treasures, Jax replied, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Or their old parking tickets, Kyrell added. But it's a lead. We need to act before Vroth gets too twitchy. So what's the plan? Harris asked, looking around nervously as if expecting Zygoth to materialize out of the stonework. The plan, Kyrell said, is we tell Vroth we've found something worth his imperial interest. While he's distracted with the shiny potential of alien loot, we make our move to the coordinates Jax found. Sounds like a plan that's just crazy enough to get us killed, Jax commented, not without a hint of admiration. Exactly, Kyrell affirmed. So, let's make it work. They doubled their efforts, each searching for a piece of the puzzle that would unlock the ruins' secrets. The air around them crackled with tension, the kind of pressure that could only build when lives and legacies were on the line. Bryce, who had been a quiet observer, spoke up finally. You do realize, if this goes south, the GAC won't have much sympathy. We're not supposed to interfere with active military sites. Active military site, Kyrell echoed sarcastically. That's a nice way of saying, occupied by space bullies. Bryce's lips twitched, almost into a smile. Just pointing out the obvious difficulties. Difficulties are what make life interesting, Kyrell replied. And potentially short, I suppose. But that's a risk we're willing to take. The ruins seemed to come alive as the team worked, as if the ancient stones themselves were whispering secrets, urging him forward. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, a challenge that stirred the blood and tested the mettle. As midday approached, the tension was a living thing, wrapping around them, tightening with every tick of the clock. Vroth was a storm brewing on the horizon, and they were the hapless sailors caught in his path. Do or die time, Kyrell said, straightening up. Let's see what these coordinates lead to. They moved as one, a ragtag band of misfits driven by curiosity, desperation, and no small amount of bravado. The coordinates led them deeper into the ruins, down corridors that felt more like the veins of a long-dead giant than hallways. At the end of the passage, they found a door, ornate, covered in the same indecipherable script that seemed to mock their every effort to understand. It was a barrier, both literal and figurative, to whatever lay beyond. Well, that looks inviting, Jax remarked dryly. Wonder how many centuries it's been since anyone walked through there. Only one way to find out, Kyrell said, stepping forward, her hand hesitating just a moment before touching the ancient surface. The door swung open, slowly, grudgingly, as if remembering its purpose after a long slumber. Beyond was a chamber, its contents cloaked in shadow, secrets waiting to be unveiled. Here we go, Singh murmured, stepping inside, the rest following close behind. The chamber was as silent as a mausoleum, the air thick with history and the faint scent of decay. Old relics lay scattered, artifacts of a bygone era that whispered of stories untold and mysteries unsolved. What are we looking at here? Harris asked, eyes wide with wonder. Looks like a storage room, Singh said, examining the contents. But more organized. Catalogued chaos, Jax commented, picking up a small, metallic object that resembled a child's toy. Bet the janitor had a fun time here. Kyrell moved deeper into the room, her eyes scanning the shelves lined with objects of every shape and size. These are all tied to the laws, she mused aloud. Evidence, maybe, or tools of governance. Bryce joined her, examining a tablet covered in alien script. This could be a key to understanding their legal system, if we can decode it. But you said this was a vault, Jax, Harris pointed out. Yeah, well, maybe they stored their laws next to their treasure, Jax said defensively. Like putting your valuables in a safe with your tax returns. The team spread out, each drawn to different items, each artifact a thread in the complex tapestry of a civilization lost to time. They were archaeologists, yes, but also adventurers, seekers of truth in a universe that often conspired to bury it. Hey, check this out, Singh called, holding up a small, glowing orb. It's like a projector, might show us something, or it might blow up in our faces, Jax said. But I'm game. Singh activated the orb, and a hologram flared to life, casting an ethereal glow over the chamber. The image was of a council, alien figures seated in a semicircle, a scene frozen in time, like a memory caught in amber. This must be the governing body, Bryce said, her voice tinged with awe. Looks like they're having a meeting, Kyrell observed. Probably discussing taxes, or the best way to make bureaucracy even more soul-crushing. The hologram shifted, displaying a map, a star map. The same coordinates Jax had found, but expanded, revealing a network of sites scattered across the galaxy. Looks like we were right, Singh said, his voice filled with excitement. This wasn't just a city. It was a hub, a central point for their empire. And those other sites? Kyrell asked. Potential outposts, maybe, Bryce suggested. Places of importance. Or more tax offices, Jax added. Because you can never have too many of those. The discovery was monumental, the kind of find that could redefine history, that could change the way they understood the universe and their place in it. But time was a luxury they couldn't afford, not with Vroth breathing down their necks. We need to get this information back, Kyrell said, urgency in her voice. Before Vroth and his goons decide to redecorate this place with our entrails. Agreed, Singh said, carefully pocketing the orb. This could be our ticket to turning this whole situation around. Or it could just piss off the Empire more, Jax pointed out. But I'm all for poking the bear. They exited the chamber, each carrying a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of a story that had waited eons to be told. The ruins seemed less oppressive now, as if they had shared a secret, and were content to let these intruders carry it forth. As they made their way back to their camp, Vroth was waiting, his expression a mixture of impatience and suspicion. Well? He demanded. We've found something, Kyrell replied, her tone even, defiant. A map, to more sites, could be valuable. Vroth's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Kyrell wondered if he would order their immediate execution. But then he nodded, a slow, deliberate acknowledgement. Show me. Not here, Kyrell said. It's too risky. We need to secure the information first. You're testing my patience, human, Vroth warned, his voice a low growl. I'm testing a lot of things, Kyrell shot back. But this is too important to rush. For a tense moment, the scene hung in the balance, the air thick with unspoken threats and unvoiced hopes. Very well, Vroth said finally, though the words carried the weight of 1,000 grudges. You have one day, then we will see if your discoveries hold value. As the team regrouped, the sense of urgency was a living thing, driving them forward. They had a chance, a slim one, but it was more than they'd had before. Kyrell looked at her team, a motley crew of misfits and dreamers, and felt a surge of pride. Let's get to work, she said. We've got an empire to uncover. And with that, they dove back into the fray, determined to unravel the secrets of the past, even as the future loomed uncertain and dark. The ancient chamber echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps as Dr. Vesper Kyrell and her team retreated to their makeshift camp. The glow of the holographic map flickered, a beacon in the oppressive gloom of the ruins, casting eerie shadows that danced like ghosts against the stone walls. Singh, his eyes glued to the datapad, muttered, "It's amazing how advanced their bureaucracy was. Even their legal codes have footnotes." Footnotes, Harris. It's like they were preparing for an alien tax audit. Footnotes, Harris asked, raising an eyebrow. Next thing you know, you'll find out they had alien lawyers. And you thought our legal systems were a nightmare. Yeah, but at least our lawyers don't glow in the dark, Jax quipped without looking up from his datapad. That's reserved for the vampires. Kyrell chuckled, though her mind was elsewhere. The Zygoth had started setting up a command post, and their heavy machinery was moving in with all the subtlety of a drunk elephant at a tea party. The ruins were under threat, each clanking piece of equipment a hammer poised to shatter history. One wrong move and Vroth will have us decorating the outer hull of his ship, she remarked, a dry edge to her voice. And I doubt we'll be classified as art. Art's subjective, Jax pointed out. Maybe he'd see us as modern commentary on the fragility of life. Or just a warning to others, Bryce added with a wry smile. A warning not to piss off the Zygoth. Well, they do say you shouldn't wear white after the second moon phase, Harris said, attempting levity, though his eyes betrayed his nerves. Their banter was a thin veneer over the tension that gripped them, a shared understanding that time was running out. The ruins were a treasure trove, and they were running out of chances to unlock its secrets before the Empire bulldozed them into oblivion. Kyrell turned her attention back to the holographic map. These legal codes, she began, gesturing at the shifting patterns of light, they draw a parallel with our own bureaucratic nightmares. It's almost comforting to know we're not the only species that created paperwork to torture the living. Comforting? Singh asked incredulously. I think I'd rather be comforted by a nice warm cup of coffee and a lack of death threats. Death threats just make life spicy, Jax said. Like the universe's way of saying, hey, pay attention. Spicy life, huh, Bryce mused. I prefer mine a little more bland, thanks. A sudden commotion from outside the camp drew their attention. The Zygoth were expanding their operations, their construction equipment a metallic avalanche threatening to bury the ruins beneath its relentless progress. Commander Vroth, his patience wearing thin, barked orders with an authority that brooked no argument. We need a backup plan, Kyrell said, her voice low as she surveyed the unfolding chaos. Something tells me Vroth isn't going to wait much longer for our valuable findings. Maybe we should just tell him we found an ancient recipe for alien scones, Jax suggested. Might keep him busy in the kitchen while we make a run for it. Or we could use the time to decode more of these glyphs, Singh interjected. There's more to find here, and we can't let them destroy it before we know what we've got. It's like they're planning a hostile takeover, Bryce said, gesturing toward the Zygoth. And we're the unsuspecting CEOs about to be thrown out of our own boardroom. Unwilling participants in the intergalactic game of Monopoly, Harris added. And we're about to get sent straight to jail. Kyrell shook her head, a grim smile on her face. If we get out of this alive, I'm taking up gardening. No aliens, no ruins, just dirt and plants. Don't plant anything too exotic, Jax warned. You never know when it'll grow legs and start asking for rent. Noted, Kyrell replied, her attention returning to the task at hand. But first, let's see what else we can pry out of this mess before Vroth decides to redecorate. The team redoubled their efforts, each member focused on deciphering the ancient codes that held the key to understanding the alien civilization. The room was filled with the quiet hum of technology, the glow of the holographic map casting an otherworldly light over their faces. Okay, here's something, Singh announced, pointing at a particularly dense cluster of symbols. It looks like a directive, or maybe a law about resource allocation. Could be why they built this place. Resource allocation, Harris echoed. Sounds thrilling. I'm on the edge of my seat. Hey, don't knock it, Jax said. Resources make the galaxy go round. Without them, we'd all be floating in space, suffocating slowly. Nice imagery, Jax, Bryce said dryly. Really lifts the spirits. Just calling it how I see it, Jax replied with a shrug. Kyrell leaned in, her eyes scanning the symbols with growing interest. If we can figure out how they managed resources, it might give us leverage with Vroth. Show him there's more value here than just rocks and relics. Think he'll buy it? Singh asked, skepticism thick in his voice. Who knows, Kyrell said with a sigh. But it's the best shot we've got. Outside, the Zygoth's machines continued their relentless advance, carving into the earth with impunity. The ancient ruins trembled under the assault, the air filled with the sound of progress at the expense of history. We need more time, Bryce said, a note of desperation in her voice. If we can stall them with what? Jax interrupted. A song and dance routine. Could be worth a shot, Singh said with a smirk. Though I don't think the Zygoth are fond of musicals. Kyrell straightened, determination hardening her features. No musicals, no dances. Just the truth. We've got something here, something important, and we're not leaving until we know what it is. Optimistic, Harris remarked. I like it. Terrifying, but I like it. Optimism might just save our skins, Kyrell replied, though she knew the risk they were taking. It was a gamble, a high-stakes game with everything on the line. As the team continued their work, the air was thick with tension, a palpable weight that pressed down on them with every passing second. The Zygoth's presence was a looming threat, a constant reminder that time was not on their side. But there was something else, too. An energy, a spark of discovery that pushed them forward, fueled by the drive to uncover the truth before it was lost forever. It was a race against time, against fate, against the tide of steel and stone that threatened to bury the past beneath the future. All right, Kyrell said finally, breaking the silence. Let's see what else we can find. We're not done yet. With renewed determination, they dove back into their work, each member of the team driven by the shared goal of uncovering the secrets of the ruins. It was a daunting task, but they were up for the challenge, driven by a sense of purpose that transcended the immediate danger. As they worked, the ruins seemed to whisper encouragement, a silent promise that the truth was within reach, if only they could hold on long enough to find it. Here's something, Singh said, breaking the silence once more. A reference to a council. Meetings about resource management, trade routes, that sort of thing. Sounds like they had their own version of galactic logistics, Harris mused. Bet they had their share of meetings that could have been emails. Probably, Jax agreed. And I bet they even had alien coffee breaks. Kyrell shook her head with a smile, a flicker of optimism in her eyes. If we can piece together their system, we might just have a shot at proving the site's value. Enough to make Vroth think twice before he turns it all into rubble. It's a long shot, Bryce said softly. But it's the only shot we've got. And if it doesn't work? Singh asked, a touch of apprehension in his voice. Then we improvise, Kyrell replied, her expression resolute. We're good at that, remember? Improvising, Jax asked. It's what we do best. With that, they returned to their task, the weight of their mission pressing down on them with every tick of the clock. The ruins held their secrets close, but they were determined to pry them loose, to uncover the truth before it was lost forever. As the sun set on the horizon, casting long shadows over the ancient stones, the team worked on, driven by the knowledge that time was running out, and that the future of the ruins, and their own lives, hung in the balance. And as they toiled, the ruins seemed to pulse with energy, a silent testament to the enduring power of history, and the resilience of those who sought to preserve it against all odds. "Let's keep going," Kyrell urged, determination in her voice. "We can't stop now." "Agreed," Singh echoed, his eyes alight with the thrill of discovery. "We're almost there." "Almost," Jax added, a grin spreading across his face. "And when we get there, it's going to be one hell of a story." And so they worked, each moment a step closer to unraveling the mysteries of the past, even as the future loomed uncertain and dark. Dr. Vesper Kyrell leaned against the ancient stone wall, contemplating the impending disaster. The Zygoth were getting antsy, and antsy Zygoth were about as welcome as a hyperactive ferret on a starship. She wiped a smudge of alien dust from her cheek and sighed. "Well, team, it looks like our friends from the Empire are about to give us an ultimatum. Betting we've got about as much time as a snowball in hell." Jax snorted, adjusting his datapad. "Or a lawyer in a vampire den. You know, I'd pay to see that show. Maybe get a couple of drinks first." Harris, ever the skeptic, gave a half-hearted chuckle. "I doubt Roth's going to be in the mood for entertainment." Singh, any chance those ancient codes have a clause on how to deal with intergalactic bulldozers? Singh, eyes glued to his datapad, shook his head. "Unless there's a footnote on how to escape a death sentence for exploring ancient rocks, we're fresh out of luck." A loud rumble shook the makeshift camp, the Zygoth machines outside gnawing away at the ground like it owed them money. Commander Vroth's voice crackled over their comms, more charming than a bucket of spikes. "This is your final warning, Dr. Kyrell. Surrender the site, or face military action." Kyrell straightened, a grim determination settling over her. "There it is, the sweet symphony of diplomacy, Zygoth style. Bryce, any ideas?" Bryce glanced up from his own datapad, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "How about we tell them we've discovered a new form of alien poetry? Might bore them to death. Or we could show them our rendition of interpretive dance." Jax offered, never missing a beat. "Jax, I'd rather face military action," Singh deadpanned, eyes still flicking over the glowing symbols. "Besides, they'd shoot us before the first pirouette." Kyrell's mind spun, searching for a solution. There had to be something in those symbols, a last-minute save from their impending doom. "Singh, keep digging. If there's a loophole in their old laws, we're going to find it." The team redoubled their efforts, the air tense with the kind of focus that only comes when death is breathing down your neck. The Zygoth outside were getting restless, their machines gnashing at the ruins' remains. Vroth's patience was wearing thin, and so was Kyrell's. But desperation had a funny way of sharpening the mind. "Found something," Singh suddenly exclaimed, eyes wide with a mix of surprise and triumph. "I think this might be it. A directive about cultural preservation, hidden in a subsection of resource management. It's vague, but it might be just enough to stall Vroth." Harris raised an eyebrow. "Stall him? You think he's the kind of guy who takes kindly to historical footnotes?" "If it's an official document, Vroth might not have a choice," Kyrell replied, a spark of hope flaring in her chest. "The Zygoth love their rules, even if it means they have to pause their destruction for a bureaucratic review. Bureaucracy, saving lives since, well, never, but there's a first time for everything," Jax quipped, though his voice held a note of optimism. Kyrell nodded, her gaze steely. "All right, let's pull this rabbit out of the hat. Singh, prep the data. Harris, you're on comms. Let's give Vroth a reason to park his bulldozers." As Singh transferred the crucial data to Harris, the team braced themselves for another confrontation with the Zygoth commander. The air was heavy with anticipation, the ruins around them whispering quiet encouragement, or maybe just reflecting the winds of impending doom. "Commander Vroth," Harris said, voice as steady as a rock in a storm, "we've uncovered a directive concerning cultural preservation. According to what we've found, your current activities might be in violation of ancient alien laws." There was a pause on the other end, Vroth's voice laced with suspicion. "And why should I believe this isn't just a ploy to buy more time?" "Because we've got the data right here," Harris shot back. "You can review it yourself. Unless you want to risk the wrath of bureaucrats from beyond the grave." Silence. The kind that stretches on so long you start wondering if you'll ever hear anything again. Finally, Vroth's voice crackled through, reluctant but acknowledging. "Send the data. I'll review it." Kyrell let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Good work, Harris. Now let's hope this buys us enough time to figure out what the hell we're dealing with." The team fell into a tense silence once more, their attention returning to the ancient glyphs that held the potential key to their salvation, or their demise. Outside, the Zygoth machines had stopped, a temporary reprieve in the relentless assault on history. Think he'll actually listen? Bryce asked, skepticism lingering in his voice like a bad smell. We're about to find out, Kyrell replied, her mind racing with possibilities. But one thing's for sure, if we don't use this time wisely, we're toast. Toast sounds good right about now, Jax mused, breaking the tension with his usual flair for irreverence. Maybe with some alien jam. Only you could think of breakfast during a crisis, Singh remarked, shaking his head. Well, if we're going out, might as well go out with a full stomach, Jax said with a shrug. Kyrell couldn't help but smile, though it was tinged with a certain gravity. All right, let's focus, people. We've got a temporary reprieve, but it won't last long if Vroth decides he's had enough of our stalling tactics. The team worked with renewed urgency, each member driven by the shared desire to uncover the secrets of the ruins before the Zygoth resumed their assault. The glyphs held their mysteries close, but there was something there, something important waiting to be found. Could be they were working on something big, Singh suggested as he scanned the latest batch of symbols. A project or a plan that required intense resource allocation. Sounds like a government project, Harris said with a chuckle. Bet they had holo meetings about it all day long. Would explain all the legal mumbo-jumbo, Jax added. And here I thought we had the monopoly on pointless paperwork. Kyrell nodded, her focus unyielding. Whatever it was important enough to leave behind a trail of bureaucratic breadcrumbs. Let's follow it and see where it leads. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the ruins as Kyrell and her team continued their work. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the heated pressure of their mission. But each moment brought them closer to the truth, one revelation at a time. Got something, Singh said, excitement threading through his voice. It's another directive, talking about a resource transfer. Could be evidence of an interplanetary alliance. Kyrell's eyes lit up. If we can prove these ruins were part of something larger, it might just be the leverage we need to keep Vroth off our backs. Or at least make him think twice about bulldozing the place, Bryce mused. Long enough for us to figure out what the hell they were up to, Jax added, ever the optimist. Kyrell nodded, her resolve firm. Exactly, let's keep at it, we're closer than ever. The team pressed on, their shared determination a beacon in the dark uncertainty of their situation. The ruins whispered their secrets, urging them onward even as the Zygoth continued to loom as a constant threat. As the night wore on, the team worked tirelessly, driven by the knowledge that every moment counted. The fate of the ruins, and their own lives, hung in the balance, and the stakes had never been higher. With each new discovery, they pieced together a picture of the past, a story that had been waiting for millennia to be told. The air was thick with anticipation, and the team pushed forward, determined to unravel the mysteries before them. And so they toiled, the weight of history pressing down on them with every tick of the clock. The ruins held their secrets close, but with each passing moment, Kyrell and her team were getting closer to uncovering the truth that lay hidden within. Let's keep going, Kyrell urged, her voice resolute. We're not done yet. Agreed, Singh echoed, eyes alight with the thrill of discovery. We're almost there. Almost, Jax added with a grin. And when we get there, it's going to be one hell of a story. The night stretched on, filled with the quiet hum of technology and the determined focus of Kyrell's team. The ruins whispered their secrets, urging him forward even as the future loomed uncertain and dark. But with each new discovery, the team grew closer to the truth, driven by the knowledge that time was running out, and the future of the ruins, and their own lives, hung in the balance. For Kyrell and her team, the path ahead was uncertain, but they were determined to see it through to the end, driven by a shared sense of purpose that transcended the immediate danger. They were close, so close, to unraveling the mysteries of the past and securing their future. Dr. Vesper Kyrell sat beneath the ancient stone wall, staring at the holographic map with the grim realization that it was all about to hit the fan. The Zygoth's patience was thinner than cheap toilet paper, and Vroth's ultimatum had the subtlety of a drunk elephant in a china shop. All right, folks, Kyrell announced, her voice dripping with the kind of enthusiasm reserved for dental surgery. Time to file our intergalactic lawsuit and stop Vroth in his tracks. Jax glanced up from his datapad, a dry smirk on his face. You think bureaucratic red tape can hold back a fleet of Zygoth war machines? That's a new level of optimism, even for you. Kyrell rolled her eyes. No, I think it's like throwing a pebble at a freight train, but it's the only pebble we've got. Singh, do you have everything ready? Singh, hunched over the artifact like it was a winning lottery ticket that only needed the right numbers to scratch off, nodded. Yeah, I've got the directive on cultural preservation copied and pasted. Only took about half a dozen translation errors to get it sounding somewhat official. Great, Kyrell turned to Harris. Find the most officious voice you've got and send it over to Vroth. Let's see if we can slow him down with some good old-fashioned alien legalese. Harris tapped a couple of buttons, his expression a blend of disbelief and gallows humor. Sending now. Shall I include an invitation to join our book club? I hear we're reading War and Peace next. Jax snorted. If Roth's got time for Tolstoy, we're in bigger trouble than I thought. Bryce chimed in, unable to resist. Maybe we could throw in a critique on Zygoth architectural style. Suggest that their bulldozers have some room for improvement. The comms crackled with a response from Vroth, his voice as gruff as ever. Directive received. I will review it. Do not assume this means I will halt our operations indefinitely. Kyrell let out a slow breath. It wasn't much, but it was something. All right, team, we've bought ourselves a little breathing room. Let's put it to good use before Vroth decides to turn us into space pancakes. Singh was already back at the artifact, his fingers dancing over the glowing symbols. These codes, they're more than just a set of rules. I think they're linked to something bigger. How much bigger? Jax asked, his curiosity piqued despite the ever-present threat of annihilation. Big enough to make Vroth's bulldozers look like they belong in a toy box, Singh replied, eyes alight with the kind of excitement that usually ends with someone muttering, I've got a bad feeling about this. Kyrell leaned in, her interest genuinely piqued. You think we're sitting on some kind of ancient defense mechanism or a hidden secret? Singh shrugged. Could be, or it could be the alien equivalent of a grocery list. But if there's anything here that might help us, we need to find it fast. Just what I wanted, Bryce said, leaning back against the crumbling wall. A race against time with a side of existential dread. Harris looked up from his station, his expression one of faux cheerfulness. At least we're not bored, eh? Nothing like imminent destruction to spice up the day. Jax adjusted his datapad, grinning. Yeah, it's like those old cooking shows. But instead of a souffle, we're trying to save our skins. And the secret ingredient is panic. Kyrell smirked despite herself. Alright, let's get this show on the road. If there's something down here worth finding, we need to make sure we're the ones to find it first. The team dove back into their work, the tension a palpable thing, like caffeine without the jitters. The ancient chamber echoed with the faint hum of technology and the quiet whispers of an era long forgotten. As Singh continued to decode the artifact, Kyrell kept one eye on the holographic map, her mind racing through the possibilities. The Zygoth might have stopped their bulldozers for now, but she knew it was only a matter of time before Vroth decided enough was enough. Harris broke the silence, his tone laced with sarcasm. You think Vroth's sitting up there with a coffee, wondering when we'll crack this open like a rotten egg? That's the best scenario, Jax replied. Worse is he's just waiting for an excuse to make us part of his ship's new decor. Bryce chipped in, managing to sound both hopeful and morose. Let's just hope whatever we find is worth it, and doesn't involve us blowing ourselves up in the process. Kyrell shook her head. If the Zygoth don't blow us to bits first, that is. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, each team member focused intensely on their respective tasks. But even amidst the dread, there was an undercurrent of determination. Humans have always been annoyingly persistent that way. A flicker on Singh's datapad caught his attention, and he leaned forward, eyebrows raised. I think I've got something. Please tell me it's not a recipe for alien soup, Jax quipped. Better, Singh said, eyes wide with an excitement that was infectious. These symbols, they're not just a directive. They're a map. I think there's a hidden chamber somewhere deeper within the ruins. Something big. Kyrell's pulse quickened. Big as in useful, or big as in, oh god, why did we wake this thing up? Hopefully the former, Singh replied, though his grin suggested he'd take either option if it meant not getting atomized by Zygoth impatience. Harris looked over Singh's shoulder, squinting at the alien script. And you're sure it's a map, not just a doodle from some ancient alien's coffee break? Singh nodded with conviction. Pretty sure, though if it turns out to be a doodle, I might have to reassess my life's work. Alright, let's check it out, Kyrell decided, her voice cutting through the banter like a scalpel. We've got no other leads, and we're running out of time. The team gathered their gear, the atmosphere one of both trepidation and adrenaline-fueled eagerness. The possibility of uncovering something significant was a siren call none of them could resist. The corridors of the ruins stretched out before them, a labyrinth of stone and shadow, the air thick with the weight of history. Kyrell led the way, Singh close behind with his datapad illuminating the path with its glow. Jax brought up the rear, a grin on his face that suggested he was ready for whatever insanity lay ahead. So, anyone think we should have brought a torch or something? You know, just in case there are any boogeymen down here. Jax, last time you suggested bringing more gear. We ended up lugging around a useless thermal scanner for a week, Bryce reminded him. Hey, it could have been useful, Jax protested, though even he didn't sound convinced. As they ventured deeper, The ruins seemed to close in around them, each step echoing with the ghosts of a forgotten past. The air was cooler here, untouched by the chaos above, a reminder that some things remained eternal, even in the face of destruction. Singh paused, consulting his datapad with a frown. We're getting close. The chamber should be just ahead. Kyrell nodded, her senses on high alert. Stay sharp, everyone. We don't know what's waiting for us in there. The words had barely left her mouth when they rounded a corner and found themselves facing a massive stone door, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols that covered the artifact. Well, that's not ominous at all, Harris muttered, eyeing the door with skepticism. Kyrell stepped forward, examining the symbols with a critical eye. This is it. Whatever's behind here, it's the key. Jax leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And by key, do you mean possible death trap or glorious salvation? Only one way to find out, Singh said, stepping up to the door with a mix of trepidation and excitement. The team gathered around, the anticipation almost a tangible thing. Singh placed his hand on the panel, the symbols flaring to life as the door began to groan open, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft, otherworldly light. Kyrell stepped inside, her heart in her throat. The room was vast, filled with strange machinery and artifacts, each one a relic of a civilization long gone. This is it, she breathed, the weight of discovery heavy upon her shoulders. This is what the Zygoth were after. Jax let out a low whistle. If this doesn't make them think twice about squashing us, nothing will. Bryce nodded, eyes wide as he took in the sight. We need to get this back to the surface. If there's a chance this can help us. Kyrell was already nodding, her mind racing with possibilities. Yeah, let's hope Vroth's still too busy with his coffee to notice we've just found his holy grail. But as they began to document their findings, the ever-present question lingered in the back of their minds. Would this discovery be enough to save them, or was it simply another step towards the end? As they worked, the ruins whispered their secrets, urging them ever onward. The clock was ticking, and the fate of everything they held dear hung in the balance. But for now, at least, they had a fighting chance. And sometimes, in the grand scheme of cosmic chaos, that was all you needed. Huddled in their makeshift camp amidst the ruins, the air hung heavy with anticipation. Dr. Vesper Kyrell, an indomitable presence even when perched on a crumbling ancient stone wall, was orchestrating their next move like a conductor at a very chaotic, possibly life-ending symphony. The holographic map flickered beside her, a ghostly guide in their quest for not getting blasted into space debris by the Zygoth. Harris, ever the optimist draped in sarcasm, piped up, so, do we charm Vroth with a sonnet or hope he's distracted by space opera reruns? Jax rolled his eyes, the datapad clutched like a lifeline. I'd go with the sonnet. Nothing like a bit of Elizabethan poetry to bore an alien warlord into submission. Enough with the jokes, Kyrell interjected, though her smirk suggested she appreciated the levity. We've got one ace up our sleeve, and it's time to play it. Singh, forever the harbinger of both dread and discovery, looked up from his deciphering. You mean the legal loophole? I thought that was just Plan Z, after we've tried everything else, including pleading insanity. Kyrell grinned, a flash of teeth that spoke of all-nighters fueled by caffeine and stubborn determination. Turns out, it's Plan A. We've got the directive on cultural preservation, and it's more than just a fancy piece of paper. Bryce, whose main contributions were usually sardonic comments about architecture, raised an eyebrow. I hope it's better than our last plan. Remember the one where we thought waving a white flag would mean something? Hey, that flag was metaphorical, Jax defended. And it was Kyrell's idea. But this isn't just a metaphor, Kyrell said, ignoring the back and forth. The directive ties into an ancient treaty the Zygoth Empire agreed to centuries ago. Something about respecting sites of cultural significance. And these ruins, they fit the bill, so we're hitting them with a double whammy of paperwork and ancient codes. Harris asked, his tone skeptical yet hopeful. More like a triple whammy, Singh added, an almost manic gleam in his eye. The artifact's codes are linked to the treaty. They recognize it. It's like finding a signed affidavit in an alien time capsule. Bryce snorted. Vroth won't know what hit him. Death by bureaucracy. Exactly, Kyrell said, her confidence infectious. Vroth might have the firepower, but we've got the law on our side. And a bit of luck wouldn't hurt. Jax leaned back, arms folded. Luck, in our situation, might as well wish for a miracle and a free lunch. Or a Zygoth who can't read fine print, Bryce mused. With their plans set, the team moved with a renewed sense of purpose. Singh continued to work on fine-tuning the data, readying it for transmission. Harris, ever the communications specialist with a penchant for dry humor, prepared to deliver the ultimate sucker punch of legalese to their alien adversaries. Do you think Vroth has a legal team? Harris wondered aloud, his fingers dancing over the controls. Or is he just going to wing it with the combined power of brute force and ignorance? Let's hope it's the latter, Jax replied. We've got just one chance to catch him by surprise. Kyrell nodded, her mind whirring with the possibilities. If we can get him to acknowledge the directive, even for a moment, the Empire's bound by their own rules. They'll have no choice but to withdraw. Singh, the eternal pessimist with a predilection for optimism in the face of doom, added, or they'll just blow us up for the audacity. But hey, at least we tried. As Harris sent the final transmission, the team gathered around the holographic map, the tension as thick as the dust that clung to every surface. Now we wait, Kyrell said, her voice steady despite the gravity of their gamble. Let's hope Vroth's got a penchant for reading small print. Time seemed to drag, each moment stretching into eternity as they awaited a response. The ruins, silent witnesses to countless generations, now stood testament to this peculiar standoff. The Zygoth's monstrous machinery loomed, a constant reminder of their fragile position on the galactic chessboard. Bryce leaned against a particularly stable section of wall, arms crossed. You think they're just faking us out? Pretending to read while they prep the big guns? Jax shrugged. Wouldn't put it past them. But then, how often do you get to say you won a battle with a footnote? First time for everything, Kyrell replied, her gaze fixed on the comms link as if willing it to life. Finally, the static crackled, the sound more anxiety-inducing than soothing. Vroth's voice, a deep rumble like gravel in a blender, came through, laced with irritation and a touch of genuine curiosity. Directive acknowledged. Clarification required. Stand by. Harris snorted, unable to hide a grin. He wants clarification. That's a good sign, right? Or the prelude to annihilation, Singh deadpanned. Kyrell's heart raced with cautious optimism. If he wants clarification, it means he's taking it seriously. Let's make sure he gets the full picture. As they waited, the tension wove its way through the team, each member acutely aware of the razor's edge they balanced upon. The ancient chamber seemed to hold its breath, waiting with them. When Vroth finally responded, his tone was grudgingly respectful, as if acknowledging a particularly clever animal that had managed a surprising trick. Your directive aligns with Treaty 7-4B. Commencing review. Bryce let out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned. He's actually considering it. Does this mean we can ask for an extension on our eviction notice? Jax quipped, though his face betrayed his relief. Kyrell allowed herself a moment of triumph, her grin wide and unabashed. We might just pull this off. Singh, never one to celebrate prematurely, added, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got him on the back foot, but that doesn't mean it's over. Right, Kyrell agreed, her gaze returning to the flickering map. Let's keep our eyes on the prize. The team regrouped, their mission clear. Stall, negotiate, and if necessary, outsmart a species renowned for its ruthlessness. It was a tall order, but they had one thing going for them. No one was better at finding loopholes than desperate humans with their backs against the wall. As they prepared for the next stage of their plan, the ruins whispered around them, the echoes of history blending with the faint hum of alien machinery. It was a reminder that while they were small players in a vast universe, they were far from powerless. The hours ticked by, a slow march of time peppered with nervous banter and hopeful conjecture. The Zygoth loomed like a storm on the horizon, but the humans held fast, buoyed by their audacity and sheer stubbornness. Finally, the comms crackled once more, the moment of truth thrust upon them with all the subtlety of a meteor strike. Vroth's voice was a thundercloud, heavy with reluctance and something akin to admiration. Directive accepted. Operations on hold pending further review. Withdrawal of forces in progress. A cheer erupted from the team, a jubilant cacophony that echoed through the ancient chamber. Relief coursed through them like a tidal wave, sweeping away the tension and fear that had clung to them like a second skin. Harris punched the air, his grin infectious. We did it. We actually did it. Jax laughed, the sound rich with disbelief and triumph. I'd say drinks are on me, but I'm pretty sure the bar's been blown up. Bryce clapped Singh on the back, his eyes alight with the victory. Guess you don't have to reassess your life's work after all. Singh, for once, allowed himself a smile. Looks like the pen is mightier than the plasma cannon. Kyrell's heart swelled with pride as she looked at her team. A ragtag group of misfits who'd managed to outwit one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. All right, let's get back to work. We've got a lot to do before they change their minds. As they set about securing the site and documenting their findings, the weight of their achievement settled around them like a warm cloak. They'd done the impossible, and in doing so, had reminded themselves of the indomitable spirit that defined them. The ruins, ancient and eternal, watched over them as they worked, a silent witness to their triumph. And as the first light of a new day filtered through the dusty corridors, the team knew that while the fight was far from over, they'd won this battle with nothing more than a cunning plan and a healthy dose of human tenacity. In the grand scheme of things, it was a small victory. But in that moment, it felt like the world. With the Zygoth Empire's retreat underway, the ruins felt less like a looming death trap and more like the scene of some twisted victory parade. The kind where everyone involved had a strong likelihood of getting blown up before they could even start celebrating. But for now, they had a moment, just a moment, to savor the win. Dr. Vesper Kyrell, ever the maestro of controlled chaos, was already orchestrating their next steps. She sat on a crumbling stone slab, probably disturbing some ancient spirit. "All right, team, let's not start patting ourselves on the back just yet. We need to secure this site before the Zygoth realize they left the stove on." Harris chuckled, peering over the rim of his coffee cup like a man who'd just realized he'd dodged a bullet. "You say, secure the site, like it's just finding a killer parking spot, Vesper. With our luck, we'd probably have to double park," Bryce added, kicking at a suspiciously skull-shaped rock. "'Cause nothing says, job well done, like a parking ticket on an alien ruin." Singh, who had been typing furiously into his datapad, paused to stare at the glowing artifact still resting in a concave of the ancient chamber. It had the look of something that could either unlock the secrets of the universe or explode in your face. "I think I've just cracked the alien equivalent of a treasure map here," he announced, his voice tinged with both excitement and the familiar undertone of, "We're all probably going to die." Jack scoffed, squinting at the artifact. "Great, it's like we're the galaxy's unpaid interns on an archaeological dig." "Hey, unpaid interns are the backbone of any successful enterprise," Bryce quipped. "Especially the ones with expendable lives." Kyrell straightened up, brushing off the layer of dust that had inevitably settled on her. "Singh, what do you have for us? A map to the galaxy's best coffee shop? 'Cause we might need it before Vroth decides to come back with a vengeance." Singh turned the datapad around, the holographic display springing to life with symbols and maps that looked like a toddler had gone wild with crayons. "From what I can tell, this isn't just a site of cultural significance. These ruins were once the center of a forgotten empire, one with technology that makes us look like cavemen with glorified calculators." Harris leaned in, intrigued. "Are we talking about laser swords or just something boring like instant rice cookers?" "More like a power source," Singh replied, ignoring the jab. "Something capable of shifting the balance of power across the galaxy if we can figure out how to use it." "Great," Jax muttered. "We've got the fate of the universe in our hands, and zero instruction manuals." Bryce snorted. "And here I thought we'd just get a pat on the back and a participation trophy for surviving Vroth's hissy fit." Kyrell stared at the projection, her mind racing with possibilities. "If we're looking at a power source, then we need to secure it before anyone else catches wind of this. The last thing we need is another interstellar arms race. Or worse," Singh added, "we become the galaxy's primary target because we're the new kids with the fancy toy." Bryce nodded, his usual sarcasm tempered by a rare moment of seriousness. "So what's the plan? We can't just slap a do not disturb sign on this place." Kyrell smirked, her eyes glinting with mischief. "We could try, but I doubt the Zygoth have much respect for signage. We'll need to broadcast our findings. Make it public, so any attack would be an act against cultural preservation itself under the treaty." Harris rolled his eyes. "Ah yes, nothing like a bit of public shaming to keep an empire at bay." Jax glanced at the artifact, still glowing faintly. "If we go public, we paint a pretty big bullseye right between our shoulder blades. But then again, I've never seen us back down from a good fight." Singh, ever the harbinger of both doom and hope, nodded. "We've got to leverage what we have. The Zygoth are bureaucrats at heart. Might as well use that against them. Besides," Harris added with a lopsided grin, "we're already the scrappy underdogs in their story. Might as well lean into it." As the team got to work, broadcasting their findings and ensuring that the whole galaxy knew about the ruin's significance, Bryce couldn't help but comment, "You think this was Vroth's Monday morning headache, or just a side gig?" "Probably both," Jax replied, his fingers tapping away on his datapad. "Maybe he's really into the whole real estate thing, and we've just screwed his investment portfolio." The ancient chamber buzzed with activity and anticipation, the team's banter a constant backdrop as they worked against the clock. Kyrell coordinated their efforts, her voice calm but firm. "Let's keep our eyes on the prize. If we can make this public before Vroth decides to throw a tantrum, we might just have a chance to negotiate from a position of strength." Hours stretched and the tension that had plagued them for days was slowly replaced by a growing sense of accomplishment. Singh and Jax worked tirelessly to decode the artifact's mysteries, hoping to unlock whatever secrets it held. The comms chirped, breaking the team's focus. Harris checked the incoming message, his eyes widening with each word. "Holy hell, guys. The message is out there. It's like gossip at a high school prom. Everyone's interested, some even congratulating us. Bryce barked a laugh. So we've gone from impending doom to intergalactic celebrities. What's next? Endorsement deals? Kyrell shook her head, her grin tempered by caution. Let's not break out the champagne just yet. Every eye on us means every potential enemy knows what's up. But it's a start. Singh continued working, his expression focused yet slightly manic. If these calculations are correct, we may have access to something that could change the way we harness energy. Hell, it might even get us a seat at the galactic table. Jax chuckled. Ah, yes, the humans. Last pick for dodgeball but suddenly MVPs when someone realizes we've got a secret weapon. Harris nodded. And all this time, I thought our biggest achievement was convincing the Zygoth that paperwork was scarier than plasma cannons. The team's efforts eventually bore fruit, their discoveries broadcasted to every corner of the known universe. The ruins, once a forgotten relic, now represented hope, and a potential shift in power that humanity could scarcely dream of before. As they wrapped up their work, Kyrell gathered the team for a debrief. Okay, team, we've got a chance to change everything. But we need to be smart. Other factions will come sniffing around. We've got to protect what we've found, and ourselves. Bryce, leaning against a wall, arms crossed, couldn't resist one last jab. You know, for a bunch of renegades, we're making quite the name for ourselves. Who knew a bit of cultural preservation could turn into a galactic game changer? Kyrell nodded, her expression thoughtful. And the best part, we did it without firing a single shot. Singh grinned, the artifact glowing beside him like a loyal pet. Imagine that, a war won with words. And maybe a little bit of luck. As the team dispersed to continue their work, the ruins seemed to pulse with renewed energy. Perhaps it was the knowledge that they'd done the impossible, or maybe it was just the faint hum of ancient power, waiting to be unlocked. But for now, they'd settled one thing for sure. Humanity wasn't just a footnote in the galaxy's history. They were writing their own chapter, one sarcastic comment at a time.